So Doey, welcome. So the reason I've got you on today, welcome to the podcast. I started this podcast because I wanted to try and get into the mindset of people that have either been through a lot of stuff, that are into their fitness, health, image, and also that are business minded. So I know you're actually an entrepreneur in the beauty space, so it's kind of a nice double whammy.
Yeah.
So I like to get into the mindset of how you became who you are today. So I'd like to go back as early as you're comfortable going, to your childhood. What were your parents like, and early school years, if that's all right?
Yes. So, firstly, thank you for having me. I always love coming on these podcasts and just sharing my journey. So, to be honest, my upbringing and who I was growing up, it's very, very different to who I am today. I wasn't born in England, but I have lived in England my whole life. So I came here maybe when I was like 1 year old. So I don't actually remember ever living in Thailand, but originally I am from Thailand. My mum is full Thai. I don't know my real dad, but I did have someone who I called dad, basically. So
Have you ever met your real dad?
no, I haven't. I haven't met my real dad. And you know what? A lot of people have always said to me, does this make a difference to you? And I think underlying, probably yes. Maybe there's some abandonment issues there and stuff like that. But he's never really crossed my mind. And that's honest truth. The only time I think about it is when I get asked about it, because I had someone who I called dad. We met when I was 1. He brought me back to England, basically. So I've always had a dad in my eyes.
And that dad is still, you call dad today, and still very much part of your life?
Yes, it is who I see as my dad. Sadly, he did pass away about a year and a half ago now. But yeah, so he really did shape me in a lot of ways. He was a huge part of my life. I did live with him for quite a lot of my childhood. My mum, she is an amazing woman, but our differences were huge, I think, because she grew up in Thailand. The culture difference between Thailand and England are very, very big. So
sorry to interrupt, once your dad brought you back to the UK, your mum stayed in Thailand?
No, so she came back over. So
right.
She came over here first before she actually brought me here.
Right.
Not for very long, I think maybe like 6 months, but they brought me over here. They were saying that I wasn't doing very well in Thailand at all. I was quite ill. I needed to get out, basically. I was definitely not born into money, that's for sure. When I have gone back to visit my family in Thailand, it's been very, very eye-opening for me, because it feels like you go back about 100 years.
Okay.
Like, it's so different. It's so different. Like the poor people here compared to the poor people there, it doesn't even compare. So I think, my mum had to deal with a lot, me being the first child, moving to another country, not being able to speak English, all the things that you go through as a mother all by yourself. She was dealing with a lot, and obviously now as an adult, I'm able to have empathy for her. Whereas I think growing up, it was hard because, you're a child, you don't understand these things. But there was a lot of resentment towards me. And I think maybe out of jealousy, she kind of gave up her life to save me. And she did it by herself, in the sense of she literally had no support system. She married my dad after a few months. So when you kind of look at it and the way it was, I don't think they were marrying for love.
Right, okay.
And, he's told me stories. He was like, when I met you, I just needed to save you. You weren't going to survive. So he did what he needed to do. She did what she needed to do.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of resentment, and obviously that was pushed onto me as a young child. We did get taken into care because again, I just don't. I think my mum just struggled. She struggled a lot. We would have been completely taken if my dad didn't step in. I've never actually been adopted by him. So even to this day, he's actually not really anything to do with me.
Really?
Yeah, but he did step in, and he took us, stopped me and my brother from going into care properly. But yeah.
Are you brother older or younger?
Younger.
Right, okay.
Younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. But yeah, my dad is considerably a lot older than my mum.
Okay.
So this came with its challenges as well, because we were literally completely different generations. You know, he's definitely old enough to be my granddad. He had kids that were, you know, in their 30s, 40s, when I was a little girl. So the difference in the parenting, you know, again, me growing up in the UK, it was very hard because I was very much, you know, influenced by everyone around, but at home it was very different. My mum was just very unemotionally there at this time.
Okay.
I think she kind of thought, well, you've got food, you've got a roof over your head, like that's all you need. So when it came to emotions and things like that, I was obviously quite an emotional child. It was very much like, what's wrong with you? You're so ungrateful.
You're so much further forward than what most of the kids would have been in your situation.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't understand, she didn't understand. So we didn't have a close relationship at all. My dad kind of was like the one that was there for me.
So what was school so like? So you essentially don't remember being in Thailand, so you've been raised essentially speaking English as your first language, etc. So what was early school, college, those kind of years like? So
when I went into secondary school, I was definitely very, very rebellious. I think I craved the attention from my mum. I wanted her to love me. I definitely went down the route at first. During primary school, I was that child that did everything. I tried to be my absolute best with everything. I played every instrument. I did every sport. When that didn't really work, I obviously swung the other way and just completely was acting out. There was a lot of things that I didn't understand then that I do understand now. But I think as well, the area didn't help. I got involved with the wrong people. I was very, very different to who I am now. I got in trouble a lot.
Okay.
A lot. So,
but sometimes I wonder where that rebellious side comes out later on. When you're starting a business, when you're wanting to buck the trend, buck the norms, you don't want to go work for someone else, you want to work on your own and that kind of stuff.
I think it definitely plays a part, because to have a business, you need to be able to be someone who can break the rules.
Yeah, that rebellious side comes into well, I don't want to be in the system.
Yeah.
I want to carve my own life, and maybe that rebellious streak.
Definitely, because I didn't fit into the school bracket, I suppose. For some reason, I couldn't focus. I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't academic, but as an adult, the thing that I spend most of my money on is courses and learning.
Okay.
So I obviously am not the type of person who doesn't like to learn, but for some reason in school, I wasn't very academic or very good. And I think it was because I just generally wasn't interested. And I think the way that it was very, what's the word? You're just following rules for the sake of following rules. You had to look a certain way, you had to dress a certain way, even if it wasn't relevant to your learning or anything like that. That's just the rules. And I think part of me was always brave enough to question why. And that made me very, it wasn't a good thing for the teachers, because I questioned it. It was always...
Even at school, questioned everything.
Questioned everything. And it was just like, the answer is it's just the rules. And that didn't make sense to me. So I think this played a really big part in having the courage to build businesses and start businesses, because I didn't really care that it wasn't what people would usually do, because I was always the type of person that was able to break out of that anyway. And, you know, I meet a lot of people in my beauty business. I've trained a lot of people in my beauty business. So I meet all kinds of people from all different walks of life. And a lot of people, they just remind me of just older students at school, just following along,
Right, okay.
having no idea why they're doing what they're doing. It's just because that's the way that they've been taught. And then, you know, you ask them questions and they sit there and they think, I've never thought about that. You know, I've asked people, what do you actually want to do? And like, what do you like to do? And they sit there and they think, we've just never even really thought about that. And I'm like, but this is your life.
So interesting.
This is your life. Like, have you, I don't understand how you've never thought about it. And they're like, well, I just got to go to work. I just got to go to work and pay the bills. And I was like, so that's it. Like, you just wake up, go to work, have a beer at the weekend or have a drink at the weekend.
It was very monotonous.
Yeah. And it's like, is that what we want to
That's
do?
what you do.
Yeah. And they're like, no. And it's like a light bulb in their head that for the first time they realize they have their own brain to think and ask questions. But I guess to me that came so naturally because I was doing it from such a young age.
Yeah. So talk to you about that. So did you go to college? Did you go straight into beauty college or what?
I left home when I was 15. So I was kind of bouncing around from school to school. I am very surprised. I actually did stay on and do sixth form and I did get A-levels, nothing to do with beauty.
So where were you staying when you left home at 15?
So I first moved to my uncle and auntie's and very quickly was kicked out of there. So pretty much I remember staying in an Airbnb, not an Airbnb, it was a bed and breakfast quite near the school. I then basically sofa surfed with a lot of my friends. I rented rooms in random people's houses.
15, 16?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had basically had a meltdown at school one day because where I was renting, the room that I was renting, the people were really nasty to me. So I had a bit of a meltdown. I was like, I just don't want to be there. I was never really there anyway. And they were like, you know, you're basically a child. Like, we can help you. Like, we had no idea. So then I basically got housed when I went in, I had a foster family for a short period of time, which they were lovely. But I think I was, again, just at a very rebellious time in my life. So
where did you study at sixth form?
In Dorking. I went to a school called, the Priory. That's the name.
What did you study?
I studied health and social and public services and dance. So originally, I actually wanted to be a child social worker.
Okay.
I didn't have any interest in beauty at all. That's not my background. I really wanted to be a child social worker because I felt like I could be a good one because of the stuff that I'd been through. So that was the route that I was trying to go down. And my first jobs were like in care. I worked in a school. Like, that was kind of like my goal. It didn't stay like that for very long because I realized I wasn't very emotionally stable enough. Like, I was very upset all the time when I would do like training to do with like safeguarding children. And I felt like it was too close to home for a lot of things. So it was really getting to me and I just really struggled with my mental health because of it. So I decided to take like a complete break from it. I didn't think it was going to be forever. I just thought, let me just go and do something where I'm not responsible for anyone. I don't have to think about anyone else but myself. So I got into sales. I literally just got the first, like, no experience sales job, knocking door to doors. And oh my gosh, this place, I learned the most there. And this is what built my skin. Like, it taught me so much knocking doors.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were you selling?
I was one of them charity people.
Right.
I would just get people to sign up to different charities.
But you get used to the door being slammed in your face, right?
Gosh,
And not having to try and...
First week, crying my eyes out. And I remember the guys in the office, they literally had a bet to see if I would come back on Monday. And I stayed there for like the next 2 years.
Sucker for punishment, you're like, let's go.
I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try. There's literally no base salary, commission only, literally just pure graft, knocking hundreds of doors. It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal, but it introduced me to the world of sales.
Yeah.
And the mindset that they had. It was so different to anything.
Talk me through that then. What is that mindset?
It was very like motivational. We would go to these events, we would get hyped up in the morning. I wasn't used to that. The previous jobs that I do, the second that we get in, we're literally like, okay, how many hours till the end of the day? We're sat there, we're looking at the time constantly, where we were just excited. Like that was the environment of it. And
it's like every day is like a challenge almost.
You hear the typical like sales environment. It was very social. Everyone was hungry especially because it was a commission only role. There's no base salary to fall back on. So you had very, very hungry, motivated people. And this just completely changed the direction of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, like I started to realize, okay, there's actually more out there. Because I can remember being like growing up and thinking I would be happy with a 35k base salary, working towards 40 grand. Whereas like now that for me, that it's crazy to think how people even survive on that money in this day and age. So yeah, being around them people that had bigger goals, they wanted to own their own thing. They, like I said, were very hungry because it was very commission. It was.
Do you think that's where the entrepreneurial business mindset came from then?
It's triggered it. I think I always had it in me because I think an entrepreneur or a business owner naturally just has to be someone that doesn't fit within the box. And I heard something, I can't remember who said it, a really successful business owner. And I think it's very true. Like if you are an entrepreneur, you've only got two options, or someone who doesn't fit into the academic world or doesn't fit into the typical shoebox. You only have two options. You either excel in life or you become a bum.
Yeah, fair.
Like you can't do the middle bit because I couldn't hold down a job really. That was one of the longest jobs I had. I didn't stay within that role, but I could never hold a job longer than a year, usually. I've literally worked in everything. I worked at McDonald's, Papa John's, Wetherspoons.
Wow.
I was a kitchen designer at one point. I tried to be an employee. I really tried and I couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. And there was always a reason. I was getting fired. I was losing my job left, right and center. So I only had two options. I either just become a bum or I have to make this work. There's only two options because I tried to go down that route and it was just, I just couldn't fit into it. So I think this is, why a lot of the time entrepreneurs, business owners, they are school dropouts. They're people who didn't do so well at school because they don't fit into that category. So you only got two options. And after, me really trying to be an employee and get a job that I wanted, I think it was always inevitable that I was
do that.
Yeah.
So how did you get into beauty?
So it was so random. The only thing that I would actually get done in beauty was my eyelashes. And if you're a girl who knows about your eyelash tech, we tell each other everything. Right. Even for some reason, it's true what they say, like when they call them like a beauty therapist, because it's literally like they're your therapist. Like I, didn't know her at all, but we'd tell each other everything. And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love what I do, because it's just amazing. But I had basically been made redundant. I was currently working in central London as a recruitment consultant in an agency. So it's agency side recruitment. It was very fast paced and I got made redundant from my job. I decided to take the summer off, and during that summer I fell pregnant. So the job that I had lined up, they obviously didn't really want to offer me the job anymore. And I kind of knew that this lifestyle obviously wasn't going to be suitable being a mum. So for some reason, I was, absolutely fixated. I'm going to have this baby, even though it was the wrong timing in every possible way going. I was living in a caravan at the time. I was jobless. Everything was definitely against me. But for some reason, I was like, I need to have this baby. And I remember talking to my lash tech about it. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I've literally worked since I was 15. I've been on my own since I was 15. I've always worked. So even if I can't keep a job, I have always worked. And she just said, have you never thought about doing lashes? And I just thought, well, no, I've literally never crossed my mind. I was like,
so this is your lash tech giving you the appeal to go into lashes, almost like a competitor almost.
Yeah.
It's mad.
She started basically telling me, like, obviously, you come here, I work from home, I make about this much a month. And I was like, fuck, basically. Never had any background in beauty. And she told me, you can literally just do a course. As soon as I left that appointment, the first course I found, I just booked it.
Yeah.
Like, that's how impulsive I am. And I think, I'm a lash trainer myself now. And I speak to some girls, and I've been doing this 6 years. Pretty much since the start, like 5 years ago of starting the academy, I have had the same conversations with some girls who I've been saying, I really want to do lashes. Every time I see them, it's been 5 years later, and I just think, God, it's so different to who I am.
Yeah.
Because I got told about the opportunity, and I was like, I may as well just try it.
Yeah. I have conversations with people, and I hear a lot on podcasts, and when you read stuff about certain characteristics that entrepreneurs have and business people have to be a certain way. I've got to be honest, I don't normally agree with everything they have to say. But the one thing I think is, I think you've obviously got to have a passion for it.
Yeah.
But certainly that you're just a doer.
You just
right?
do it.
You just kind of just, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And when I look at some of your socials, and like I said earlier, every time I look on your social media, you're doing something different. It's I've started doing this, then I'm moving salons, then I'm FX trading. It's just like constant. But it's almost like, I don't know how you find it, but I just get the piss taken out of me all the time when I was younger for this different idea and this different idea, and I'd try it and it'd fail. And it's almost like you just need to keep, it's very cliche to say failing, but get started. If it's not going to work, bin it and just be trying stuff, because eventually something will stick. But that just roll your sleeves up, and if someone gives me an idea, I will lose sleep for the next week thinking about, how do I get this started? How am I going to do this? And I'll be sketching logos and reserving website names before I even find out if it's plausible or not, right? So I can really relate to you being sat in the lash tech chair, and as soon as you get it, you're like, right, that's it, with me lash tech. Yeah. Book the course. Actually, you'll find out when you're on the course if you're going to enjoy it or not.
Yeah.
Right?
And I've always been that way. And like you said, I've always had the piss taken out of me. I remember there was a comment, he actually used to be a really good friend of mine growing up. We still have each other on socials, but we'd never talk nowadays. Very different people. I knew him at a very different time of my life. Anyway, I did bump into him. This was a good 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. So still a very different place to where I am now. But I remember I was trying something at that point, and he said, oh, you're not a millionaire yet from selling whatever. And I don't know, that just stuck with me. I just was like, one day, one of these things, and it's going to pay off. And also, even if it doesn't, I don't want to ever look back over my life and think, what if? Like, I've always said that I would rather have a life of oh wells, like that didn't work out, I tried it, I satisfied that urge to give it a go. There's literally I don't think there's anything that I haven't tried in the online space or the side hustle space. Like, there's just nothing.
I love that. I really like that analogy of I'd rather have a life of oh wells and not what ifs. Yeah. It's a really nice ring to that. Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that.
There's just, again, I get to speak to so many people and it's amazing, but I feel really heartbroken for some people because they just think, oh, I should have done that when I was younger. I should have done this. I should have done that. There's nothing, there's actually nothing I haven't just tried.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, someone said to me the other day, if I actually died like next week, how would I feel if I, knew that was when I was going to die? I'd be sad because there's still a lot of things that I haven't done, but I wouldn't actually be that disappointed.
Okay.
In all honesty.
Amazing thing
Yeah.
to say.
I know. And I didn't actually realize that I really felt like that until someone asked me that. And I thought, well, everything that I've wanted to do in life, I gave it a go. I'm telling you now, the majority of it has failed.
Yeah.
But I gave it a go and I know I gave it my all, so
I've got a lot of time
there's
for that.
like no regrets there, like, yes, there's obviously places I want to travel and things that I want to do, but that's after I've got the money that I've got. But along this journey, I've always tried to help the people around me. Even when I wasn't trying to do good in life, I was still doing exactly what I wanted to do.
I think it's a good measure that you've had that thought and you come up with that answer to that question of I'm enjoying where I'm at. I'm enjoying the course that I'm on and the path that I'm taking. So actually, it's quite a good measure to think that you're doing something right, I guess.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, I think we all want to measure success and happiness in materialistic things.
Yeah.
And it's just not true.
Yeah.
I meet people who have a lot. I meet people who don't have a lot. I've also gone to places like Thailand when they literally have nothing and they're the happiest
Some of the
people.
happiest people.
They're the happiest.
You're going to say that, yeah.
Because you're never comparing. You're never on to the next best thing. You're literally just enjoying the country that you live in and the family, the friends that you're around, and you're having fun. That's literally all that matters at the end of the day. And, I think, like I said, I try everything. Even if it fails, we just get up and try again.
Yeah, it's that fight spirit. I think there's a lot to be said for community, like you just said. I recently just started, probably about a year and a half now, doing jiu-jitsu. And it's the first time since I used to play rugby that I've actually had community. I stopped drinking 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
That passed away. We lost a business. We had a big family fallout. So I've never had as little money in my life.
Yeah.
But I've never been as happier because I've got a community around me of people. I've never been as close to my sister. I've got 2 gorgeous nieces. And I know it's kind of this realization that you actually, I'm still a sucker for a nice car, a nice watch, but it doesn't rule your life anymore. It's not a need. You can appreciate nice things, but actually what really matters in life are those little things, I think.
Like, I think it's so important. Like, as much as I know what's important, I'm still very much driven by money. Like, I love the luxuries in life. I'd love to live in a place like Dubai. Like, I'd love to drive a G-Wagon. Like, that's still part of me. But at the end of the day, I do really know what's important now. And even, the stuff that, as long as I am living a fulfilled life by doing what I love, like I said, trying things and not being that person that thinks, I should have done that a year ago. Because, I say this time and time again to the people around me, the girls who want to train, everyone. If you are having a niggly little thought in the back of your mind, that voice doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
You will literally just think year on year, should have done that a year ago, should have done that 2 years ago, should have done that 3. It doesn't go anywhere. So all that happens is that you just waste this time.
Yeah.
If you try and give it your all, I think there's a difference between just being like, okay, I'm gonna go and do a course and then that's it. Like, you have to actually try.
Yeah.
And I think this is why people laugh at me, because they see me trying and then they see it fail. So
there's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all.
I don't see it as a bad thing.
Fair play, 100%.
I don't actually see it as a bad thing. Like, before, I used to see it as a bit of a embarrassment, but now, like I said, I can comfortably sit here and say, if I was to die next week, I actually wouldn't be that upset about it, because I know that I've tried my best in everything that I've done. And also, like I said, I've always done what I wanted. So even when I wasn't, doing business and doing my good for the world, I was probably doing my kind of bad stuff for the world, but I still always did what I wanted to do. And I had a lot of fun. Yeah. I had a lot of fun. So there's nothing that I regret.
So take me to starting the beauty. So you've gone on the lash course. I'm guessing, did it light a fire, or was it okay? And then how did you get into actually obviously to owning your own salon? Take me through that process.
So when I first qualified in lashes, I absolutely hated it.
Right.
It was really bad because obviously I didn't research into the course I was doing, who I was training with. I had no idea. I just turned up on the day and I just thought, this is absolute awful. Like, this is so bad. I hated it so much. I remember the partner that I had at the time, I was like, you have to let me practice on you, because I had just moved to Reading, so I didn't know one single person in this area. No friends.
So you're putting lashes on him.
Yeah, no family. I couldn't practice on anyone. I was like, I need to practice.
There's your content right there, done for the year.
It was so bad because it took me 2.5 hours to try and do one eye, and I stuck his whole eye together.
Oh my.
Yeah. And they were going in like every direction. I'm like, I know he was just trying to be nice and
But
be
can
like,
you get them off straight away?
yeah, we managed to get them off, but it was just all a palaver. I was obviously so stressed out because I was like, this is so bad. He was there just like, the greatest. And this is awful.
What I'm learning. Let me live, I'm learning.
Like, I don't think we'll do this again. I was like, I wasn't just like a natural, basically. But I was very heavily pregnant and I was getting more and more stressed about what I was going to do, because all that I could think about was giving this little girl everything that I didn't have, and that stability. And I wanted to be the one that could look after her myself, not relying on anyone else. So, you know, like I said, like, I didn't have family. He wasn't actually close with his family. So we were very much just me and him.
It's interesting, sorry to cut across you, it's interesting that you're already thinking that you wanted to be able to take care of her by yourself, even though you're in a relationship.
Yeah. The thing with this relationship is, it's a really tough one, because he still means a lot to me. He will always, as the father of my child, like, I will always have that respect for him, even if he doesn't have that for me. But he had a really bad gambling addiction.
Okay.
Really, really bad. Like, we're not talking like little bits.
Gambling's a real tricky one as well, because all the other, I think, if you want to say addictions, it's alcohol, sex, but whatever they are, drugs, they're all quite overt. And it's fairly obvious. If you turn up to my place of work and I've got a beer in my hand at 9 o'clock in the morning, you'd be like, Ollie, is everything all right, mate? Whereas just a sneaky bet here and there, it's all on your phone. No, it's not. No one really notices until it's too late.
And it's one of them things that you don't understand as someone who doesn't do it, because you just think, well, you can just stop, because your body's not addicted to it. Because obviously, if you're a heroin addict, if you stop, you could probably die if you don't do this the correct way, because of the withdrawals and stuff like that. Whereas you're thinking, can't you just stop? But they can't. And he became a very different person when that addiction took over, and he just couldn't stop. So yeah, like I said, in the back of my mind, it was me.
Right. Okay.
You know, I was like 7 months pregnant and we literally got an eviction notice. I was like, this lashing thing is all I have.
Wow.
Like I said, it was tough because I didn't know anyone here. But I just thought, I've got nothing to lose because I've already got nothing. So if we go up in flames, we go up in flames, but I have to try. I have to give it everything that I have. And I remember I would go on to Instagram, everyone that tagged Reading, I would go and follow all of the girls. And I literally, for pennies, I was like, I need models, £10 for lashes, didn't care. I was like, I just want to get good. I was, following all these girls, going into their likes, following all their likes, all the girls that were obviously in there, reaching out to people, you know, I'm looking for models, like, you know, it's literally pennies. At the beginning, sometimes I was even doing it for free. I literally really put myself out there. And then I was so active on social media, even though I was pretty shit. But I understood a lot about marketing because the previous role that I was in, I was a recruitment consultant, but in digital marketing. Okay. So I worked with a lot of social media managers. So I understood the importance.
Right.
So I would basically start showing my life. and start showing like, I'm going to be a mum and I want to provide for my little girl, like follow me along on this journey. Like, you know, I was very, very personal with my branding. And then obviously people were relating to me. And the business just grew because I niched down massively because I kind of just thought about what I liked and the kind of problems that I faced going to Lash Techs as a client. And one of my things is I'm a big lash girl. So, you know, I'm not like super natural with my lashes. I want them to look like the lashes.
Yeah.
And I always found everywhere that I would go, people couldn't do that for me. I would always want to put strip lashes over the top. So my niche was that volume, the strip lash creation. That's what I wanted to knuckle down on. And obviously I just started attracting everyone that was like me. And then it was word of mouth. And it started spreading like wildfire. Like it was growing just, so rapidly.
Where did you get the knowledge or the idea to go niche?
In all honesty, I thought about the problems that I faced and I saw it as a big problem because it was a big problem to me. I would be someone that would wear strip lashes every single day.
Right.
So I would never leave the house without strip lashes. So lashes were important to me. Every place that I went to, they never gave me what I wanted. It was at the time like very natural. That was like the trend. And obviously we're kind of reverting back to that now.
Yeah.
But at the time, you know, no one was giving that voluminous, like that kind of look. So when I did that, in my head, I was like, well, this has been a problem to me. Surely there's other people out there like me.
Yeah.
And obviously there were a lot of people. And because no one else was doing that and everyone else was just blending in with what the trend was, I really stood out.
I find it so fascinating that you've almost evolved into that mindset without being taught it, or you've not read it anywhere or anything like that. You've almost just kind of, I don't know, it's almost innate inside you, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So what year would this have been?
2019.
2019.
Yeah.
So Sienna Beauty was born.
Yeah.
And then obviously, do you want to talk about Sienna as well?
Sienna was also born in 2019, March 2019. And everything about her was my turning point in life. It's like I was saying to you, I was very much going down the wrong path before her. I had a really, really bad drug problem. I, you know, partied way too hard, always getting involved in the wrong things. And like I said, I was in the worst place, I suppose, at the time of having her. But she gave me hope, a lot of hope that I could be something better, because I think she gave me that purpose, I suppose. Like that's how I see it. And, you know, I'll talk about my daughter now, Maya, but the relationship that I have with both of them is very different. And I don't think necessarily the relationship that I have with Sienna is very healthy, because if you think of it in an actual relationship, it's not that healthy. But Sienna she literally saved me, you know, like she wasn't born out of love or any of that stuff. Like, you know, she was born because I needed saving. Like she literally saved me in every possible way, like probably a person could be saved. And that's why I had to call the business Sienna Beauty, because I was like, God, I would never be doing this if it wasn't for her. Everything is about her. And then this whole, you know, persona, my purpose was to be someone that one day she would look up to. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to ever rely on anyone else to be able to look after her. I wanted her to see me as like a strong person and someone that would always protect her. I think that's like the one thing that we say as parents is we just want to protect our children. So that was what I wanted to do. And, you know, I just wanted to be the absolute best version that I could be for her. So I was just trying to better myself in every single avenue. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was, you know, very, very much about her. I branded everything around her. You know, I was having a little girl, and to be honest, I wasn't a very pink person. Like, I'm always wearing black. If anything, I was quite tomboyish.
Right.
So when everyone saw this, they were like, what on earth? But the branding was never me. It was her. I wanted people to kind of remember how they would feel as a little girl, liking all the flowers, the princessy stuff, and, you know, that feeling of like, I can do anything. You know, that feeling, that's what I wanted to bring back for people when they saw the branding, when they, you know, came to the business. I wanted to show my little girl to have those dreams. You know, that was like the goal, and I wanted that feeling to be portrayed through the business.
It's amazing that you've done that even when it's not to your taste as well, right? Yeah. You're trying to create an emotion, I guess, when people come to your business.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it was crazy because I was doing all of this stuff without even knowing that this is actually what you do when it comes to branding. It was just because I was thinking of her and I was thinking about me.
Did it just seem logical to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But again, I wasn't thinking of it from like a business point of view. I was thinking of it for her. I was like, I want her to be in this little salon and it make her feel like a princess and make her feel like she could achieve anything. Like, you know, your dreams, like, that's something that should never die.
Yeah.
And as you grow older from a little girl, like, those dreams slowly die and you kind of get further and further away from that little fairy tale that you once had. And I just think it was a really nice concept to try and bring that back for people and to show people again, like, I was very personal, like, look, like, I started this from nothing and no experience in it. It doesn't mean that you can't be good at something. And I wasn't at this moment trying to get people to do lashes because I wasn't even training myself. But what I was trying to show people was go after your goals, go after your dreams, because just because you don't have that background doesn't mean that you can't start again, can't do that thing and can't be good at it. So yeah, that was kind of like my mission, I guess, with Sienna Beauty.
So Sienna was born the beauty salon and also your baby girl.
Yeah.
And talk us through what happened.
So Sienna actually passed away when she was 3.5 months. And I think, you know, this is obviously the worst thing that I've ever gone through. It was the tip of the iceberg, in all honesty. But I think, you know, my whole identity became around her. She became my whole purpose for living, because I don't actually think I wanted to live before her. You know, that's why I kind of put myself in dangerous situations. Obviously, I was addicted to drugs. Like, you don't obviously value your life if you're doing those things. But when she was born, that changed, you know, and that really, again, gave me hope. So I guess, like, when she died, everything is taken away, more than just your child. And I just remember the day like it was yesterday, even though it's been 5 years now. I just remember saying, like, you know, I'm going to travel the world with her. We're going to do everything together. We're going to be best friends. And, you know, I think to have all of that crushed within a moment is crazy. And I think it's weird because, you know, I'm these are like happy tears and sad tears, because obviously it's sometimes I just think, I don't know how I survived this. Like, it's yeah, it's crazy because when you get everything, like I said, all of that stuff taken away from you, you just, you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. I feel like I'm always going to get emotional when I speak about her, but like I said, it's not actually like really sad emotions. I think it's just like that realization of, fuck, that actually happened to me.
Yeah.
You never believe that it's going to happen to you. And I think that was, you know, like kind of like the biggest takeaway that I got from that is we always think it won't happen to us until it happens to us.
Yeah.
You know, even now, you know, I will never leave the house without saying goodbye to Maya, because the night that Sienna died, I didn't say goodbye to her. I was literally out for a few hours. It was like my first kind of night away from her. And I was in a rush to catch the bus. I was with one of my best friends. But yeah, I was in a rush. So I just ran out the door didn't say goodbye. And yeah, I think we just forget that we're not actually promised. We're not promised tomorrow. And that's why I think I was already living life like that anyway, but even more so afterwards, it was like, I have to live life to the fullest because, yeah, you're not promised.
Thank you for sharing that with me. How do you go about getting out of bed in the morning after you've been through something like that? How do you wake up and start each day? Like how do you put one foot in front of the other from then?
So for a while, I think, like I said, I was at those crossroads, and I had 2 dogs. I got rid of them, which is not something that I would ever do. I couldn't even bear to like walk them or look after them. I think this is why I became so attached to Sienna Beauty, because it actually got me through the worst time of my life. I think because I felt like I was doing something in her memory, that's what got me up every day. But I did get to a point where I was kind of thinking, again, I've only got 2 options here. I either just end it now, or I literally just live the best life I possibly can for her. And I think that was what I chose to do, obviously. But I remember kind of sitting there every single time that I just saw, I can't do this, I can't do this. I think I just thought of her. And I think, grief is such a hard thing, and we all deal with it in really different ways. But I think every time I spiraled, or every time I wanted to spiral, I just thought about what she would say to me, or even though she was like a baby, or what like she would want for me. And like, we know that the person that we love the most, that they will never want us to feel pain or spiral. And I just remember being like, God, I just can't give up, because, she was here for a reason. Like, I can't let that just fizzle out and not change my life and do good and, actually live an exceptionally extraordinary life. Because otherwise, why did she die? And that's the way that I chose to look at it. And I don't know if it was something higher in the universe that was giving me those thoughts, but I didn't know how else to look at it, because it was either that, or it was either I can't go on. I couldn't just stay in the middle, because I was driving myself insane. I was never going to be that person. But I just, I had to make that decision. And that's the decision I guess I came to. And that's what got me up every day, because I just kept thinking about her. And I think I've always said this, which is actually, quite surprising for a lot of people, but the love that we actually had for each other is by far stronger than the grief and the pain.
Say that again for me.
The love that we actually had for each other is by far the strongest thing that we have. Way more than the pain, which is crazy, because obviously it's quite linked. But I guess you can never basically, I got told this once, like, you can't actually really have 2 emotions literally at the same time. And every time I thought of her, that love overpowered everything else.
Wow.
And I think, like, anytime, that we talk about it, and I cry because of how powerful that is. Not necessarily because I'm sad, but because I'm so lucky to have felt that kind of love in this lifetime. Wow. And to be honest, I think we all have the chance to feel it, but we just don't all recognize it.
Well, and a lot of people would take it for granted as well.
They take it for granted.
When you see, I'm not saying it's their fault, but when I see some parents screaming at their children, right, and they may say things that they don't mean, or whatever that looks like, you take that for granted very much, right?
Exactly.
And listen, everything's relative, and I'm sure, like we were saying earlier, the biggest problem in your life, no matter how small, is the biggest problem in your life, right? So the alternative to the problem that they've got, which is small, making them shout at their kids is, I mean, compared to what you've been through, it's not even comparable.
It's tough, because my mum used to do this a lot. She used to say a lot of nasty things to me growing up, and it made me realize like how important our words are. Because she used to tell me a lot, that I was the biggest mistake, the worst thing that's ever happened to her. So obviously this was like chipping away at my self-esteem. And for a long time, I didn't have that value within myself, all because of the words that were being fed to me. So I've, always said I'm making a very conscious effort to be very, very careful about the things that I say to my children, because those words make a difference. And like it's been a while since Sienna's passed away, and obviously now Maya's been born. I was worried about how I was going to be, but to be honest, I feel like I'm absolutely the best version that I am for her, because there's just nothing about being her mum that I don't like.
That's amazing.
Even those hard nights, the sleepless nights that I had when she was little, she can be quite emotional, quite clingy, but I just love it.
It's amazing. And she's not going to stay little forever either.
I'm just like, I think, again, it's so hard to love those hard moments when you've never lost it. So sometimes, when people really struggle, I feel for them, because there's nothing that I can really say to make you kind of grateful for those moments, because it's not really human nature to be grateful for something until you've lost it.
Yeah, that. So when you're being kept awake at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, it's too hard and everything. Before Maya, you was thinking, I'd do anything. Be kept awake at 2-3 o'clock in the morning at the minute.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know she's there. I know she's, alive, healthy. When she cries, I'm like, gosh, so cute.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, my partner's a little bit different with it. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah. I can relate to that loosely from my father passing, and we worked together. I've always worked for a family business, always worked for him. He was the bane of my life. I used to hate going into work on a Monday morning. Everything was always wrong, and it was always, never good enough. And I was always striving to make him happy or please him and all that kind of stuff. And now he's gone, actually being my own guidance and my own boss and stuff, I would give anything for just even 1 or 2 crosswords with him, just to kind of steer you in the right direction. Or sometimes in the morning when he can't bother to get out of bed, but I'd have to bounce out of bed back then because I knew I'd get a bollocking if I wasn't there on time. Or just the little things that I took for granted. And you're right, until you've lost it, and there can't be anything like losing a child. I'm not trying to compare the two, but I'm saying loosely. Yeah. I can understand that, I'd do anything for that now, even just for a day of it or whatever that looks like. So exactly. I honestly can't imagine. Starting a business is hard enough in itself. Grief's almost impossible at the time. Yeah. So doing both of those things together is such a mountain to climb. But I love how you've kind of created this beautiful symphony of actually they complemented each other in a weird way.
I think, my grief just wasn't the typical grief. I don't think I actually dealt with it until a good 3 years afterwards. Wow. I used the business as a distraction. That was my way of grieving, by saying, this is her memory. We're going to keep her memory alive. She's going to stay here with us, because this is Sienna Beauty, and none of us would be here without her. So I very much clung on to that. And it's a hard world, the business world, because like people see it in all different ways. But that was the angle that I was coming through. That was my way of dealing with the grief.
But the girls in the shop all bought into that as well, because obviously a few of them were coming to a tanning studio and that kind of stuff. So like, I would hear all through that why Sienna Beauty was what it was and what you created down there. So that really fed from you throughout the whole business and into the customers and everything. Yeah. It was really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Like I, tried to turn something painful into something good. And that's why I started the academy, because I was like, look how much it's changed my life. Let me try and help other girls do the same thing.
So let's go on to that. And so then you start, so Sienna Beauty went really well. And I know that firsthand because I know we share the same customers and that. So I know how well Sienna Beauty did as a salon. So when you took the academy was run from the salon as well, was it? So you start to train other beauticians and lash techs and the full range in that as well. How did you find that transition?
That was where I found my passion.
Right. Wow.
That was actually my passion because obviously I kind of fell into beauty, not because I loved it, because I had to make it work, but the passion was the teaching. 100% was the teaching, being able to give a skill to someone else that could potentially change their life and helping them through that journey, helping them through those doubts, those insecurities, giving them that hope. That was my passion. And that's why I actually got the salon, the shop front, because I wanted that big space to do the academy and things like that. And obviously, I also wanted to give opportunity to other girls as well. Because at the time it was, harder to go like self-employed. So I wanted to give people the opportunity to have a place to work, then build something themselves, which is why I didn't want to employ anyone. Everyone was self-employed. I wanted them to thrive. That was genuinely what I wanted from the business.
It's amazing that you're training, because Reading's not a big place either. So it's amazing that you're training people to then almost fish in the same pond.
Yeah, no, I basically created a lot of my competitors, which is fine. Like I said, that was the choice that I made because my passion wasn't necessarily on that side of things. My passion was the impact that it was making. So yeah, like that's why I kind of started the academy and what really kind of pushed my motivation with it.
So what's happening with that now then? What was the next step from there?
So the difficult thing was when I opened the shop front, it was just after COVID. So I spent every last bit of money that I had on obviously making this place what it was. And I didn't have the clientele afterwards for a long time because obviously we had lockdown after lockdown. Everyone was scared. Everyone went without stuff for so long. It took a long time for things to go back to normal. Whereas obviously, well, you've got a bricks and mortar business. You are already in a loss when you open that. So to stay in a loss for such a long time and not have good cash flow and things like that, and it being the first thing that I've ever done like that, having no guidance, no family, I made a lot of mistakes. So I ended up making the decision to give it up. I had to do what was right for me and not hold on to my ego and think, I have to just be here for the shop front because it wasn't doing me any good. So it wasn't the end of Sienna Beauty, but it was the end of the salon at that moment. In all honesty, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do next because the next chapter was when I fell pregnant with Maya. And the one thing that I said was, I'm not going to do a repeat of last time. I only really focused on the business when Sienna was born. I worked every single day that she was here. So that wasn't going to happen again. So that obviously meant that the business would have to be kind of put on the back burner. And I don't see that as a failure because this is what I call success. Like that is what I wanted. I wanted my family. I wanted a family again. I wanted to be a mum again. And I wanted to be present for my little girl or little boy. And that's exactly what I've done. And obviously, it's still early days. She's 9 months old now. We're kind of now getting back into the swing of things. I was at a awards thing the other day and it actually reminded me how much I loved beauty, how much I love the industry. So it definitely reignited something in for me, but I needed to take this basically like year and a half out to focus on what was important.
So what happened with the salon got liquidated? What about people that work there? What about your existing clients? Do you still do any of that?
Yes. So a lot of the girls that worked in the salon, they're doing absolutely amazing things now. They've gone on to do their own things. Like I'm so proud of every single one of them because, it was a stepping stone, but they put in the work, they made that happen and they're thriving. And, to to be a part of their journey, even if it was for a tiny second of it. That for me is what I wanted to achieve. So yeah, they've gone on to do amazing things. I still have Sienna Beauty. I still train. We still do treatments. But I have 2 new girls who started working for me, and they were apprentices. Sorry. So they were quite young girls. There's 2 of them in the business. One of them's just gone self-employed now, but still works very much with me. And now it's just to help them shape their future and follow their dreams. But the business still runs, it's still there, it's still slowly growing in the background, but now I just need to realign my direction.
So whereabouts is that? Is that still there?
Still in Reading, so we're on the other side of Reading now, so very, very close to Kennet Island.
Okay, right, nice.
Which is crazy because that's actually where Sienna Beauty all started. So we've done like a whole circle back round, literally down the road from my first house in Reading, where literally it was all...
I've got to say as well, I remember you actually contacted me when you were moving out of the salon, asking me if I'd got any rooms available. And I know we didn't have running water in the room, so it wasn't suitable. But I remember you reaching out and being like, listen, this isn't for me. Yeah. This is for the girls because I want to help them stay on their feet and that. So I remember thinking at that time, like, huge respect that, you're trying to help them out, even though it's not really to your benefit. So fair play to that. So that's still... ticking along in the background. So you still do all the training and everything there as well?
Yes, I still do the training. Like I said, I think over the next month and even, over the past week, I've really been kind of thinking, where do we go from here? And I definitely have a different type of vision now for Sienna Beauty. I think before I was very fixated it being all about Sienna and, very much keeping her alive in that sense, but that was actually stopping me from grieving in real life.
Okay.
So I've done a lot of therapy in the past year of letting go, and that actually came with letting go of the business in a way, and actually creating a new brand image within it. Obviously, it's always going to have the same message behind it, but before it was very much me and Sienna. But if I'm not working in it myself all the time now, it doesn't really make sense for the brand just to be about me. So I've been kind of realigning myself, trying to think what I actually want for this brand and where I want this to go, what direction I want this to go in. So that's kind of like the little project that I'm working on at the moment with Sienna Beauty, but it's definitely not going anywhere. But it just needed a big shift. And like I said, like part of that shift was had to actually happen outside, because I didn't realize how much I was using Sienna Beauty as my way of grieving, which was stopping me from actually grieving.
Can we go back quickly to when you started Sienna?
Yeah.
Advice for young lash techs or new lash techs that are, or anyone wanting to operate in the beauty space that are desperate for their own bricks and mortar shop and they're starting a business. Just talk me through how you raised money for that and how difficult that is to get it off the floor, but then also sustain it as well, the problems you face, because it's not easy at all.
Yeah, no. So if I could give any advice, is to not rush it. Make sure you are doing this for the right reasons, not because you want to look good on social media, because there is no point having all of that and being stressed behind closed doors, because you want to be in a place where you generally need it. You're overflowing with clients. You're going to take on girls. They're going to be overflowing with clients. Then have a salon, because then you're ready for it. You're ready because you've got the cash flow for it, because this is not a cheap thing to do. I had saved a lot of money. I managed to get a loan, a bounce back loan during COVID, which absolutely screwed me over in the long run. I'm not going to lie, because I didn't understand any of these things.
Right.
So again, more advice is to actually understand the stuff that goes behind everything, not just... I think there's a huge difference between, a self-employed lash tech and lash business owner. There's two very different things. If you're going to employ people, have people working for you, have a bricks and mortar, compared to you just do lashes by yourself and it's only you.
Because you're responsible for all those people and as well. And actually, the rent payments, the tax payments, like
there's a lot
come thick and fast. Yeah,
a lot of legal stuff that goes into everything, which obviously I didn't really even understand. So
do you think it's so strange that, because I went through the liquidation, it's one of the worst times of my life, to be honest with you. Once you go, you don't really learn about business, I don't think, until you actually try and liquidate one and you get out of it and you realize you've got all these obligations and all these responsibilities as a business director that you almost don't really know about. You're kind of signing things, and I think personally, there should be some form of course or something that you have to go on before you get made a director, because the obligations are huge, and actually you're so responsible for everything that the business does.
I had no idea it was a completely different legal identity to me. Mm-hmm. So when I was taking money from the business, I obviously just thought, well, that's my money. That wasn't my money. So I ended up owing a lot of money to myself. And if I didn't have that money, then a lot of money to the tax man. I had no idea about any of this. So on top of just opening, lack of clients, all of those things, it was a big lesson. A really big lesson. So like I said, like the biggest piece of advice, like stop being in a rush to get to where you need to get to, because everything in life is about timing, and, you know, you're in the right place at the right time. And, you know, don't rush the process. Do it right. Don't just do it just because you want to look good. And, you know, I will hold my hands up and say, like, that was the mindset that I had, and I had to learn the hard way. And you know, it's such a big thing for me to have to drop that pride and to give in, because I know there was a lot of people waiting on my downfall, and I know still to this day there's a lot of people thinking, wow, that's really gone down. When, like I said, to me, the real success is what's happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, I pray. And also as well, it's at the end of the day, it's what money ends up back in your pocket, right? And if you've got the fancy shop front and you've taken on 4 or 5 other beauticians and you've got the training academy and that kind of stuff, that actually might be the same amount of money in your pocket as just having 4 or 5 salon days around in different areas. You're fully booked on each one of those days. You haven't got all the overheads. You haven't got all the staff. You've got a lot of flexibility. You can pick and choose when you work.
Yeah.
Who's winning there? However, there's a big stigma and this kind of ideology about owning a shop and it all being branded and looking beautiful and everything. Well, actually, if you do a 5-year comparison, you're probably better off just staying freelance and going from salon to salon.
I think you really need to know what you're getting yourself into. It's not to say that it doesn't work, but you have to be the type of person that is ready to take that on. And like I said, like, you know, I could have held on to that salon for way longer because of pride. You know, I could hear what people were saying in the background. Even when I got rid of it, I heard a lot of girls, you know, talking to each other, saying to each other, like, the business has gone down so much and stuff like that. And, you know, it hurt. It hurt because that was everything to me. I put everything into that. So to hear people saying stuff like that, it was hard.
So it's like a personal attack on you because you become a brand, right?
You know, there was people who I considered best friends, like preying on my downfall. Obviously not friends with them now, but you know, it was a really tough time in my life. Really, really tough time.
That's so sad.
It is. It's sad because I only ever had good intentions with it. And like I said, you know, just because something doesn't turn out the way that you want it to do, it doesn't mean that it's a big failure. You know, I learned so much from that, and where I am now in my life, I'm very, very happy. I'm very far away from where I want to be, but I'm very happy. And that's not something that I've ever really been able to say. So yeah, it's a huge, like success for me. But yeah, so
I hear that. So what's next then? What's next for you?
So I think for me, when it comes to Sienna Beauty, I've always had a passion for skincare. So when I actually had the salon, another part of that was to to have girls to take over the beauty side so I could focus on the skincare. And I did like advanced courses in that. And obviously it's a lot less like time consuming. But that was something that I never got around to doing because obviously we had to leave the salon. So now I'm thinking, you know, I at one point I was thinking, I don't actually even want to do this at all. But more recently, something in me, I don't know, something in me has been sparked again. Like I said, I went to an awards event the other day and I got really inspired. And it reminded me actually why I fell in love with beauty in the first place. You know, helping girls feel confident, also helping them through their life challenges, just as they helped me through mine, the worst time in my life. These girls were here, you know, and there was so much more behind just doing beauty, but I love the fact that I literally made people feel better.
That's amazing.
So I loved that part of it, and I completely forgot about that love until recently. And obviously, you know, now I've got a little girl and I do want to be present, and it's just not possible for me to be working 12-hour days anymore.
Yeah.
You know, 6 days a week. It's just not going to happen. So I have to adjust to it. Like I said, I've got the girls working in the salon for me. My dream was always to have like that one-stop beauty shop where, you know, you have a place that you can basically trust for everything. Not one person that does everything, because I don't actually really believe that you should specialize in everything, because you technically can't.
Yeah.
But to have different girls specializing in different things. Obviously, I've got an apprentice who's focusing on lashes right now. I have someone who does nails. I kind of think maybe this is my time to go back to the skin clinic and create again like a not completely different brand, but a new brand image. I have a few ideas of, you know, what I want to niche down in as well. You know, now I'm not starting from the ground up with my business experience. I know that worked the first time round. You know, I really knuckled down on niching into what I wanted to specialize in, what I wanted to be known for. So I have a few things that I have in mind for the skin clinic. So I'm thinking to actually rebuild that in a completely, you know, different image, and also just take on board all the lessons that I've learned.
I was just about to say about the lessons that you've learned, because actually all the businesses that I've failed on, all the businesses that I've done, I'm definitely not where I envisaged I would be at this age, or where I would like to be, etc. However, the wealth of knowledge that I've built up, and now actually the new product that I've started online, it's so lean. I haven't got staff. There's me, there's a couple freelancers, and the rest is outsourced. You know, I can outsource the majority of the marketing. I still like to keep some of it in-house, just to make sure that your true brand identity is being controlled. The logistics, the storage, distribution is all outsourced, and manufacturers outsourced, although it's in the UK and it's a company that I trust. But all of a sudden you're lean and diverse, and I'm not. There's so many people that like, they'll have an idea and they're like, right, I need to go get an office, I need to go get a warehouse, I need to buy this much stock, I need to do this. I'm like, stop spending money. Stop hiring staff. All you're doing is like giving yourself overheads and things that you're tied into that you just don't need. Go and try. I remember I had a sit down with the one of the founders of the Grade, the nutrition thing. I sat down with Juliet. I think it was Simon, her partner, when they started it. I sat down with the Tiger Time when I first came up with the idea. And I was showing her the product, and she's like, it's amazing, and this kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, where do you plan on selling it? And she said, well, how many sunbed salons are there in the UK? And I was like, I don't know. I should know that, but I have no idea. She's like, well, how big's your customer base? And I was like, I have no idea. Well, I just come up with this really cool product and can't wait to sell it. And actually, it's just so simple.
Yeah.
But she was just kind of telling me, like, just picking out things that I hadn't thought of yet that was so obvious to an outsider looking in, so obvious to her. And actually then she actually gave me She's like, if I'm being honest, I don't think the sunbed industry is big enough for it to be your flagship brand that you want to, I know that you want to create, but you'll certainly learn a lot and you'll certainly have a lot of fun doing it, etc. But what you should do is go around the salons just in person trying to sell it. Of course, I ignored the advice. He just pushed influencers online and can you tag and post and give people commission, that kind of stuff. And actually, I've come full circle in the past 2 years, and I'm now back out, meeting the salons face to face, going and speaking to the people who buy the product and use the product, finding out if they like it. And it's going so well, but weirdly, I ignored that. Didn't ignore that advice, but I kind of went on a different path to start with. But so many of those things that I'm learning now that actually, when I go to start a new product or the next business, I can take those learning lessons into that. I've got another idea that I'm thinking of starting shortly, and it will be just test, get the product out there, test it, find out if people like it, get into people's hands, and then start to refine it as you go along. You wait for it to be perfect, and actually just
this is the thing. Like, obviously, it's just exactly the same as me. Like, we learn by doing things, not by what someone tells us. Otherwise we would have been good at school, you know, like that's not how I learn. I learn by doing things. And like I said, like now, I don't think Sienna Beauty is going to be the thing that makes me millions. And that, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, but it's my passion. And I enjoy it. I enjoy, you know, there's many parts of it that I enjoy. So this time round, I'm not going to start putting that pressure and those stresses that took away that love. Just having that salon took away my love for it and made me forget why I even liked it in the first place. So I now know I'm not going to necessarily go down that route unless, you know, we never know. I'm never going to just turn my nose up to what's to come, because you never know. It could rebuild and we could end up being in a place where we need that again, but I will never do that unless I really need it, not just for the sake of it.
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned, and you know, I want to focus on, like I said, recreating myself within that. Focus on my forex trading business, because that's something that I'm so passionate about, and it's something that I do, you know, from my phone, so I can do that anywhere in the world, and that really aligns with the life that I want to live as well. Because, you know, now I'm just thinking, I think my mindset's very, very different now. Like everything that I do, I think, is this adding to the main goal? So, you know, how I want my life to look like exactly. I think it's so important that we have an idea of that. And, you know, it doesn't matter if it doesn't necessarily plan out exactly the same, because things change. But one of the things for me is I want to travel the world, and I want to travel the world with my family. Being tied down to a place that doesn't really align with that.
I hear that.
So, you know, I need to be making sure I'm in a position where I can just, you know, when I'm at that stage, be like, you know, next week I'm going to book us a holiday and we're going to go. You know, I need to make sure that I'm not in something that I wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that's why I'm, you know, really, really passionate about trading, because it
gives that flexibility.
I think it will give me the life that I actually really want to live. Plus, I just enjoy it. So I think now it's just all about being passionate and doing the things that you love. Yeah.
Well, I'll certainly link all the businesses in the captions below, and so people can get in touch with you or ask any questions about the forex trading or Sienna Beauty or whatever that looks like. Amazing. So listen, Doey, what a beautiful, amazing person, a true inspiration. Obviously, some of those things that I've heard either secondhand or read about online, but I really didn't get the true gravity of the situation and what it's helped you achieve. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I have no doubt, and I mean this genuinely, that no matter what you want to go on to achieve, I have no doubt that you'll be able to achieve it. I don't really mean that. I think you'll be
Thank you so
very
much.
special.
Thank you for having me as well.
Been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.